I'm speaking today with Matt Dworzanczyk. He is a filmmaker and traveler and also director of DPRK, The Land of Whispers. This is, of course, a documentary that Matt made traveling in North Korea. Matt, really great to talk to you. I have so many questions for you. This is great.
Yeah, thank you for having me, David. Good talking to you as well.
So, question number one is we're going to provide the link to your documentary so people can take a look at
Sure.
it. One of the most interesting things about your documentary that's different about a lot of the others I've seen is that you didn't sneak into North Korea under some kind of false pretenses. You actually went to North Korea on a type of travel group that most people I've talked to don't even realize is a possibility. So, explain that a little bit.
That's true. Actually, a lot of projects, a lot of similar or different, a lot of projects in general that happen in North Korea, they lead you to believe that it's so extremely difficult to get into the country. But the truth is that it's quite easy to enter North Korea. I mean, the trip is very restricted. You're stuck traveling with a group or independently if you're willing to pay a whole lot of money. You're constantly sheltered by several tour guides who are supposedly, or perhaps a little bit more than tour guides. They're there to really protect you and make sure you only see what you're supposed to see and not see anything else. And to book a trip like that, it's extremely easy. It's easier than traveling to Paris, really, because you really send an email, you send a copy of your passport to the company, and they handle everything else. You don't really have to do much else. So, I mean, the thing is that journalists are not allowed to enter North Korea. So some of the bigger companies, they need to get around, they need to sneak in, and they need to, worry a bit more about how to do it.
So as people watch the documentary, how long were you in the country total from start to finish? Because I think that might be something people don't realize from looking at the length of the documentary.
Sure. I mean, I was in North Korea for 10 days. The tour was, yeah, 10 or 11, 10 days, I believe. Although most of the time, really, as I mentioned in the film, a lot of the time was spent simply traveling, and that's a part of the annoyances of that trip. That as a trip, it's actually quite boring because nothing ever happens. You're taken from the train to the bus to the plane to the hotel, and you're constantly really held in isolation and very sheltered. But the experience of visiting a country like North Korea is, of course, invaluable. Yeah.
You had, in different moments during the documentary, you had situations where one of your handlers, one of your tour guides would get upset with you, either because you were filming the wrong thing or talking to the wrong person or asking questions that they didn't like. And you kind of seemed to laugh it off in your narration that you did after the filming of the movie. Now, obviously, when you were narrating after the fact, you knew you weren't actually going to get in trouble because it had already
Sure.
passed. But when this was happening, did you take it seriously? I mean, we just heard about an individual who now is potentially going to have to spend 15 years in a North Korean prison for doing unpatriotic activities or something like that. How worried about it were you day to day?
I mean, the thing is that in the film, it might seem like I really did things against the guides, but the truth is that I never really broke any rules. I was always very open about my filming. I always invited the guides and the people representing the company to view my footage, to view my pictures. I was very open about what I was filming. There was a few times more than a few times really, when they shushed me down and they told me to turn off the camera, which I did. So as you see in the film, there's snippets when I got, maybe 20, 30 seconds of a certain image before they told me to turn off my camera.
Along those restrictions you talked about, this might be interesting, I think, to the audience. Talk about some of those very specific rules that they have. So, for example, you mentioned where if you're photographing any image of any of the great leaders, the photograph has to be taken how? What are the restrictions?
Yeah, you have to shoot the entire image. You cannot do a close-up. I mean, like you see me right now in a close-up shot, this would be a crime in North Korea. You couldn't get a shot like that of any image of their dear leaders. You have to shoot the entire image from shoes to the top of their head. Cannot cut off any part of the image. In addition to that, it has to be shot from a low angle, so you couldn't look down on them pretty much. You have to shoot the whole image from a low angle that glorifies their dear leaders. Also, in addition to that, there's a number of other rules. For example, you cannot disrespect newspapers in North Korea. There was apparently a tourist in the past, it's just a story that I overheard, who had a newspaper and he wrapped a gift for one of his tour guides in that newspaper, and that caused a ton of trouble for him. He had to write an apology letter to the dear leaders themselves before being allowed out of the country. So they definitely take that seriously.
So this really gets to a question that my producers and I talk about all the time when it comes to North Korea, which is the individuals who were giving, we'll talk first about your guides and then maybe more broadly about the people there, but the people that were giving you these restrictions and making sure that you follow these rules, you spent quite a bit of time with them. Is your sense that they are making you comply with these rules or trying to make you comply out of an honest sense that this is what's correct, or is it more out of fear that they know they'll get in trouble if they don't do this? In other words, were they bought in to the idea that it is really disrespectful not to film the entire dear leader, or were they doing it out of routine or out of necessity?
Yeah. I mean, that's a difficult question, because that's a question that really everybody, whether they travel or just hear anything or watch anything about North Korea, everybody asks themselves this question. It's basically, do people really believe that this reality, do North Koreans really believe that this reality that they live in, or is it just fear or something that they're afraid of? And to be honest, I don't have a very good answer. I can tell you my personal feelings, and I do think that one of my main guides, I definitely think that he was all for his country, that he really believed that everything that he was saying was true. But then I overheard, some things here and there, nothing ever specific, but I overheard that he did have some doubts about it. Then I had another tour guide who was a little bit more open with me, and I cannot say for sure. Of course, he never said anything about his country. He was still very proud of everything. But he was more curious about me and about the Western world. And to me, that was a little sign of, curiosity is good in a country that's so closed-minded and that's so closed off. So to me, that was a sign that perhaps, he was considering what may be out there. And actually a lot of the North Koreans, mostly guides, because mostly that's the people you interact with, I heard from several people that if you ask them the question of if they had the chance to leave North Korea to travel anywhere, where would you go? And a lot of them say first place they would like to visit would be the United States, actually. So I mean, I think that they're definitely curious about the outside world, but also, at least the tour guides that I interacted with, I'm quite sure that they believe what they're saying as well.
How did it manifest itself during your trip, this fact that, for example, there's a couple of scenes, one where it's either a bartender or waitress who gets to play around with an iPad, I think it is, and she's just fascinated by the touch screen and the iPad. And at another point, one of your guides has a similar kind of like drawing app on a mobile phone, and these things were just incredible to them. And is it similar? Just talk about that a little bit. I mean, for example, I was just thinking today about someone who committed a crime in our area and is going to be spending 20 years in prison. And I was just kind of thinking of, imagine when they get out of prison, all the things that will have happened socially, culturally, technologically, that they just won't understand. Compare that. I mean, is it in a sense like being in prison to be in North Korea in the sense of isolation from world culture?
See, I don't imagine this. I don't compare it to being in prison. What I compare it to is a hardcore religious cult. That's really what it feels like. It's a cult where the cult leader has a firm and total grip on the people, where they have no outside exposure. They worship this guy or their dear leaders. If you're told your entire life what is black and what is white, and even though you might disagree with it, but if your entire society, if everything you know supports whatever they're told as being true, then of course they're going to believe it. And to go back to the waitress that you mentioned, I did meet in one of the hotels a waitress who spoke just a few words of English, just enough to serve drinks and some snacks to foreigners who visit there. And yeah, and one of the tourists had a tablet, and she was mesmerized by Angry Birds and some other typical games. It reminded me of the moment when I got my first Nintendo when I was a kid. I mean, this girl was just completely excited about it.
Did you just kind of alluded a little bit, kind of to the bad things of North Korea. Did you or anyone else you were traveling with even try to ask guides about the oppression, the malnutrition, the starvation, the work camps, or was it kind of understood that nothing good was going to come of asking those questions?
I was very open, and I was trying to be as open as possible with them. I asked them about, for example, the Yongpyong island attack, when North Korea attacked the southern island. I think that was in 2010, 2011. That was big on the news, and I mean, bottom line, asking about political events, asking about all those things that the West talks about, I get the feeling that the North Koreans simply don't have an answer to give for foreigners. So I might ask them about it, and they'll give me the answer that they're basically taught to answer to foreigners, and that answer usually does not make a whole lot of sense, because it just uses a lot of propagandish words. It talks about, imperialist dogs and South Korean puppets and this and that, but this answer doesn't really say anything. And, you can drill and you can try to get them to acknowledge your point of view. And sometimes I thought that they did even get my point of view, but they simply didn't know how to answer. And the realization that I came to, and the point I'm trying to get to, is that I think in this country people are not taught to reason. They're not taught to think logically. They're simply taught what to say, what to do, how to think. So me giving them a reasonable argument, or or any other visitor or foreigner that gives them a reasonable argument, they might agree with that argument, but to them, they've never been presented with that argument. They've never had to respond in this way, and they only have the one answer that they've heard on their own news and so on. So I don't really blame them for that.
Two other things I wanted to ask you about, kind of in the last couple of minutes we have here. One is, was there any point at all at which you felt in any kind of danger or vulnerability, I guess might be a better term?
Travel in North Korea is very safe, contrary to what many people may think. Like, you're not going to get robbed, you're not going to get kidnapped, you're constantly, sheltered, protected from everything. Nothing can really happen. I mean, I felt angry a lot of the times. I felt annoyed a lot of the times. I felt depressed a lot of the times. After many days, I was just emotionally exhausted and feeling absolutely helpless. But I never really felt like I was in any danger or anything like that. I mean, it seemed like the tour guides just tried to get me through their country, tried to get me through the trip, through that experience as quickly as possible, tried to make sure that I see as little as possible, and it just seemed like they just wanted to get rid of me, just get their job done and move on.
How was the food? Because I've heard conflicting accounts about food in North Korea.
The food was very simple. It was nothing to rave about. It was nothing great, but at the same time, it's a country that faces starvation, malnutrition. Nobody really knows what the issue is. So I simply ate what I was given. I was never hungry or anything, so that's not a problem. But they were definitely saving food. Anything that was not eaten was taken away, supposedly to, or maybe to take for themselves, or to serve to someone else. I'm not sure, but they didn't waste food.
I've been speaking with Matt Dworzanczyk, filmmaker, traveler, director of DPRK, The Land of Whispers. We'll, of course, let everybody know how to find the film. Excellent work. And what's your next project we can watch out for?
Yeah, I just got back from the remote region of Ha Giang that's in the north of Vietnam on the border with China. There's a unique event that the local ethnic minorities hold every year. It's the Kovai Love Market, which is a pretty cool event where the ethnic minority couples split up from their spouses once a year, and they go to this event and seek out their ex-lovers to spend some time with, to share a drink, or to spend the night with, and then the next day they go back to their daily life. So I was just filming that project. I got back just a couple days ago, and it will probably still take me a couple months to finish the edit, but that's the next film I'm working on.
All right, it sounds fantastic. We're looking forward to it. Really, thanks a lot for taking time. I know it's 11 hours later where you are, and we had to kind of do some schedule gymnastics to get this to happen, but thanks so much.
Thank you very much.